He's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28.
There's a plan. Former White House chief strategist and OG MAGA man Steve Bannon once again claiming Donald Trump will end up with a third term. He is, of course, not alone. President Trump himself has suggested running again multiple times. He is even selling Trump 2028 merch, both online and at the White House. The demolition of the East Wing this week has also added some fuel to this fire. Would you totally renovate a house that you were about to move out of? It all comes as President Trump tries to assert new authority over elections and putting election deniers into positions of power. My panel and our arena text chain are back. Brad Todd, is President Trump going to run in 2028?
No, and he doesn't think he can.
He doesn't think he can?
He doesn't think he can.
Say more.
Yes, it's. I think that Steve Bannon, Jared Kushner once called Steve Bannon a suicide bomber in his time in the White House. And I think that that's probably, this is another effort to stir up trouble and get clicks. I do tell you that if there was a plan, I don't think they would do it in an interview with The Economist. I mean, I love The Economist. I subscribe to The Economist. But that's not where this news would break.
What do you think, Adrienne?
Look, I mean, I appreciate your optimism, and I hope you're right, but I think we have to take this seriously. I mean, I completely agree with the way you laid out at the beginning of this segment, Casey, which is, first of all, you don't do a giant overhaul, which is highly controversial, of the East Wing of the White House, completely demolishing it, if you're only going to be there for the next 3 years or so. So that feels a little, iffy there.
Maybe he plans on attending many balls there.
Yeah, perhaps. Maybe he's looking
it's a legacy.
to some Vance Rubio balls in like 2029 and 2030 in his own mind. But look, I think it's something that we should all take very seriously. It's certainly something that legal scholars, both independent and within the Democratic Party apparatus, are looking at very seriously. We've been looking at this for a very long time, because what we don't want to have happen is get caught flat-footed and not have a plan in place should he actually decide to go forward with this.
I should say, as someone covering the White House, I know reporting that there's the plan that Bannon is describing here, and I think it's important to emphasize the former when you introduced him to, as a former strategist in the White House who's on the outside here. But look, we have heard the president muse about this, joke about 2028. He has the hats as well. And we wrote earlier this year that even if there's not a concrete plan here, there is a political strategy. He's often thrown out 2028 when his White House is being criticized for a certain issue or a certain crisis. So then there's a distraction. It keeps the spotlight on him. It also keeps people guessing in a way. We were talking.
Just trolling? I mean, is
there's
that part
also,
of it?
I mean, we know this White House there's no shortage of trolling online as well, and sort of the quote unquote owning of the Dems and the libs. I do think the spotlight part here is important, and I think there's a link between this and also the construction of the ballroom, which is even when he leaves the White House, he wants a certain stamp of his to be on the White House. And,
well, that stamp is already there.
And that stamp is there. Well, it's
part
actually
of it is
a crater
gone
right now,
exactly.
Right, on the East Wing. But he wants people to remember sort of, the Trump era, even when he leaves.
What I will say is that this is incredibly triggering to Democrats. And, people use the word trolling. I don't know that this is trolling necessarily. What I would say is that this doesn't come out of a vacuum. I mean, this was a president who tried to launch an insurrection on January 6th. This is a president who's still trying to litigate the 2020 election. This is a president who is putting people in positions of power that has to do with our next election too, that are election deniers. I mean, there is a lot of, there are many things that could lead one to believe that it is not beyond the realm of possibility. We wouldn't be saying this if this were Biden. We wouldn't be saying this if this were Obama. It wouldn't even be a subject of discussion.
Using the National Guard in ways that could,
well, and
be
speaking
helpful
of
in 2026 midterms.
Adrienne, speaking of the way that things become part of the conversation, this was Maggie Haberman talking to Vanity Fair. She says this: he clearly enjoys knowing that it bothers Democrats that he says this about a third term, but there is a troll aspect. But the thing with all of his trolls is they start out that way, like Canada as a 51st state, and then he socializes them. They take on a life of their own, or he breathes more of a life into them.
I mean, Maggie is the queen of covering Donald Trump, and she knows what's going on in his brain, and she's a great analyzer of his thoughts. I mean, this is the playbook that we've seen him play out. I mean, he just laid it out there very succinctly. You know, he also talked about Greenland. Let's not forget that that's still out there in the ether, that, you know, he's attempting to acquire that land. It's something we have to take very seriously. And I think that oftentimes people, especially a lot of the MAGA Republicans, like to sort of laugh it off and call us snowflakes and say that we're, you know, it's a joke and we're taking it too seriously. But at the end of the day, the way that was just laid out is exactly why we do take it seriously. These are real threats.
There's this AI video from as recently as over the weekend where the president is, you know, doing a version of this trolling thing. I mean, Brad, why are they doing that?
Well, we've never had a president who has such an acute understanding of how to rewire the brains of his enemies 5 times a day. And by doing so, you keep them off their game. You keep them talking about things that don't matter. And I think that there's a lot to the way he does this. He knows his use of the internet helped propel him more than Steve Bannon did to be a president in 2016. And I think he continues to do that. He understands internet culture. It's a throwaway culture, right? You do things, they get thrown away, people laugh, you own the moment.
But I think the problem here is with that is that you're making the same 2 different arguments all the time. One argument is, oh, he's just trolling and it doesn't matter. And the other argument is, oh, but he said it. He said it. When he does things that he says, then it's like, but look, he said it, and we should just agree with that.
Aren't you the OG, take him seriously but not literally?
Or should you take him literally and not seriously? I mean, you can't have, I mean, you're always trying to have it both ways, and I think that's what is.
Well, we should take him literally because we are watching this play out, obviously in the courts and the DOJ too, when he's going after his political enemies. He said he would do that.
I guess we're going to find out.
Former Trump Svengali Steve Bannon today hinted that President Trump might run for president again, even though the U.S. Constitution doesn't allow for such a thing, in 2028. Take a listen.
He's going to get a 3rd term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28.
There is this kind of wacky theory that J.D. Vance will run for president with Trump as his vice president, and then J.D. Vance gets into office and flips it. But do you think Bannon actually believes this, or is this just trolling? I think he was with The Economist there.
Trolling is the word I would have used, Jake. I mean, I don't know any serious, smart conservative that listens to Steve Bannon. I mean, he's a crazy person. I think this is a troll. I think they love trotting this story out every few months. Between the 22nd Amendment and the 12th Amendment, which says if someone's not eligible to be president, they can eligible to be vice president, it's going to get blocked. And the states control who's on the ballots. You'll have states like California and Colorado who will just not list Donald Trump on the ballot as the presidential candidate in 2028, and that'll be the end of it. So I think they love laughing at people and getting everyone all riled up, but at the end of the day, it's not going to go anywhere.
Well, you know, you mentioned that this is a crazy person that no one listens to, and yet this is a person that has a huge platform that people actually do listen to. I think
a lot of people in MAGA world listen to Steve Bannon.
They do, and I think
whether they should is another matter. But
exactly. And I think you know, even though all the case that you outlined and why Donald Trump cannot be on the ticket are all the reasons. I mean, this is not constitutionally possible. I still think you have to take it seriously. I mean, they are bending the levers of power and the courts and the legal system to their benefit. And I mean, while I don't think a Trump 3rd term is possible, I still think it's something that Democrats should take seriously.
I think after January 6th, you got to take it all.
Yeah.